Couple times I had to have police protection.
Almost.
Would make it never end. How can you say an answer to anything in 10 seconds?
Candidate Business Forum. My name's Tommy Wood. I work with BizWest, the business journal of the Boulder Valley in northern Colorado, and I'm also on the board of directors at the Lafayette Chamber. Lafayette's a wonderful community. It's a city with a small town feel built on the backs of small businesses through the hard work of our business community, and that's why we organize this forum. So the voices of the business community can be heard, your concerns can be addressed, and you all can make informed decisions about who you want to govern our city. Business owners have been submitting questions for this forum for about a week. All the questions that the candidates are answering have been submitted by business owners from Lafayette. Any questions that were submitted after 11:59 p.m. yesterday will be given to the candidates to answer on their own time. So here's how it's going to work. To start, we're going to give each candidate about 10 seconds to introduce themselves and state their name and whether they've served in local government before and for how long. Then our question askers, Frank Phillips and Rosabelle Rice, will ask the questions. Every candidate has to answer every question. We can repeat a question, but we will not explain them. You each have 30 seconds you each have 60 seconds to answer each question. Our timekeeper, Devin Price, will raise a yellow card when you have 30 seconds left and a red card when your time is up. At the end, we'll have a lightning round where you'll each have 10 seconds to answer a few yes or no questions. And that's how it's going to work. So let's get to it. So Saul, why don't we start with you and we'll go down the line. Start with your name and how long you've been in government.
Amazing. Well, first off, thank you all for being here and thank you for having me. My name is Saul Tapia Vega, and I am a current member of City Council, so I know this seat pretty well, and I'm running for re-election for this year. So I've been in city government through many different ways. I sat on a couple of boards and commissions as well as through my day job. But yes, I'm a current member of City Council and I'm running for re-election.
Okay. My name is Eric Ryant. I've never been I did run for office in 2023, City Council, but did not succeed, so I'm trying again. I've never really held a political office, but I've done a lot of leadership with my companies, and I'm an independent business owner for Lafayette.
My name is Anne Marie Jensen. I've lived in Lafayette for 11 years. In terms of service, I've served on the Planning Commission, the East Lafayette Advisory Committee, the Livable Lafayette Task Force, right now the Land Use Working Group, and the WOW Children's Museum Board. And I have about 35 or 40 years of background as an independent consultant in public policy.
Hi, I'm Mike Watson, running for City Council. Obviously, that's why I'm up here. I don't have any sort of experience with public office yet. I'm looking to get started. I think most Americans look up at the political system above me, and I don't think that it really represents a whole lot of us. And I can't think of a better place to get started than here in hometown of Lafayette. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Luke Arrington. I've been a Lafayette resident since 2013. Never held political office, but I've been volunteering on the Open Space Advisory Board for the last 8 years, where I'm vice chair currently. I'm on the Urban Renewal Authority for the last 7 years, and have a background in commercial real estate.
Good evening, I'm Kyle Bollier. I have no local government experience other than working for the Parks and Recreation Department when I was 12 to 18 years old, and the city library in my hometown, North Carolina, when I was 8, 9, and 10. I've worked for about 20 years in the federal government, in and around FBI, State Department, and USAID. So looking to make a splash where I live in lovely Lafayette.
My name is Adam Gianola. I also don't have any experience on local government, although I've been volunteering with the Waste Reduction Advisory Committee and the Sustainability Committee for the past 10 years. I was also a member of a bunch of the city plan working groups, currently on the land use code working group. I'm an attorney for my day job, and yeah, I've been in Lafayette a long time and want to see it succeed and grow.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Gallegos. I'm a Lafayette resident of 10 years. I'm one of the current city council members seeking re-election. I first started in 2023, and 2 years have gone by way too quickly.
Good evening. My name is Josh Barrell. I was a high school teacher in and around Denver for 15 years. I've never held public office, but I was active with our teachers union and in the political wing thereof, and I hope to be a council member soon.
Hi, Rob Glenn. Thank you all for hosting this Lafayette Chamber. Great to be able to speak in front of everybody. First time running for any political office. Moved to Lafayette, Old Town Lafayette in February of 2021. Just been super proud to be a part of this community. It's been so welcoming, and it just kind of circles back to my roots from being from New Orleans and just seeing culture diversity and historic preservation around here. It's important to me.
Okay, so first, I will let our timekeeper again explain how the timing is going to work.
So you each have 1 minute for these questions. When 30 seconds has passed, I'm going to hold up the yellow card. When I hold up the red card, that's it. We're going to move on to the next candidate. And I'm going to be very strict about it.
Excellent. Okay, so again, as Tommy mentioned, I can repeat the question, I can't explain it. And again, these are from the chamber members. I did not make up any of these questions, so no trick questions in here. All right, and then kind of the order we'll go through is initially I'll start here, work our way down, and then as we get with each question, we'll move one person down to be the first person, so everybody gets a chance of being first and being last. All right, so Saul, question number 1. What role does the city council play in creating a successful environment for small businesses to thrive?
Amazing. Fantastic question, first and foremost, whoever submitted it, congratulations. That's a great question to start with. Everything. So the environment that small businesses and local businesses come into is what is set by the city council. So this can mean a lot of different things. For me, it means just making an environment in which businesses don't just have the ability to survive, but to thrive. I specifically love small businesses, and I love Lafayette businesses, what we've been able to do. But I think it can expand, it can get better. For me, it's in terms of streamlining permitting, the permitting process and regulations, equitable access to resources for all businesses. And this can mean access to capital, which is something that a lot of small businesses require. And investing in local infrastructure. Allowing for businesses to thrive means that they have to be accessible to the public, and they have to be able to tie into our resources and tie into our infrastructure, and that means that the city has to do that. So I know my time is almost up. It means everything. The city council and local government really have everything to do in building a welcoming environment.
Thank you. Eric?
Well, I agree with Saul that the city council is responsible really for everything that small businesses are involved in. And I think it's really important that the city council gives a lot of support, offers grant programs, tax incentives, because right now the economic environment isn't really very settled, and it's very unpredictable. So I think it's really important for the city council to get in front of it, to help the small business, to make sure that it has the proper tools to succeed, because it's a very difficult business environment right now.
So I think the question actually has an important piece, which is it's the job of council to create the environment for small businesses to succeed. And that includes infrastructure, support, financially. Time is money to a local business. So anytime things are delayed, like permitting or tying into water or sewer, that costs money. So we need to do that efficiently. But I think it's important that we understand it is not the job of local government to create winners and losers in the economy, not to decide which businesses should be successful as opposed to other businesses, but to create the environment and create incentives to help business equally so that no business is getting any sort of unfair treatment. So I think those are really important values that I think the council should support.
Thank you. I think that the main role of the city council is primarily supportive for local businesses, for starting a new business. We would be, not we, but if I'm elected, we would be more like a kinder version of Shark Tank. You come in, like, tell us the idea, like, city council can be supportive. I don't think that it's necessarily important to, I think that the community does have a say in what sort of businesses go in. And I mean, I guess saying that does imply that I'm in favor of picking some winners and losers. But we want to make sure that our community is built up in a way that's representative of our values and the people that we have living in Lafayette and sort of the nature and I mean, just all the stuff that makes Lafayette worth holding on to, worth living in. And we want to grow our business, but we don't want to lose that spirit. Thank you.
I do think it is an environment thing and a framework for city council to create to help businesses. I mean, they do have to survive on their own and thrive in the community. I mean, that is support from people coming to their businesses, but a lot of the hoops they have to jump through is a permitting and codes. It's signage requirements. You know, you can lead them to resources like, you know, our economic development director. I mean, try to provide these little bits of information and, you know, connect them with other businesses that can help support them and they can learn from. You know, there have been grants, there have been other financial support. Those are tools, but, you know, the environment that they get to live in and be a part of is connecting it to other parts of the community, which will help them thrive and others thrive in their businesses. So that the environment is key to it because that will attract other businesses and support the existing ones we have, which just helps, you know, helps raise everyone's boat at the same time. So.
I love this question. I'm going to answer it slightly differently because I'll stipulate a lot of what has been shared so far. But I think a question of affordability. Small businesses, owners and workers can't thrive if their staff can't afford to live in town. They got to commute from several towns away. So I think we have to bucket affordability, housing affordability with small business and local business success. That's point one. Point two, you know, Lura and then DDA have been very successful. And so something I've been thinking about is like how to supercharge DDA, particularly with the arrival of the Sundance Film Festival as a forcing mechanism. So looking around Boulder County, we can look at the Downtown Boulder Partnership, a 501c6 organization membership that's really focused not on revitalization. It accepts that Downtown Boulder is already thriving. So perhaps we could explore supercharging DDA with a Downtown Lafayette partnership modeled and uniquely applicable to our circumstances. And then lastly, I'm concerned we're heading towards a recession. So how can City Council help buttress small and local businesses so that they're able to be resilient as the economic downturn possibly arrives in 2026?
Frank, can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. What role does the city council play in creating a successful environment for small businesses to thrive?
I think city council should be setting policies that let small businesses grow, build, develop, and do that in a way that's accessible to businesses. Right now, if you're starting a small business, it's hard to figure out what to do. And so the city could, you know, partner with community partners like the Chamber to create a roadmap. I know the Chamber has a roadmap, but there's improvements that could be made that really outline kind of these are the processes that most small businesses go through. If you want to, build a building or, do some development on a building, here's the process that you go through for planning and permitting, and really make that easy for businesses to look at. And that can apply to businesses through any stage of their development, whether they're, just starting out or whether they're growing and getting bigger, or they want to move, or just become a bigger part of the community.
So we love our small businesses. They are the heart of our community, and we want to do anything we can, both as residents and as council members, to make sure they feel safe and welcome and want to continue doing business here. Something I'm a believer in is teamwork. It's not something that we as a council can do alone. I'm very grateful for our partnership with the Chamber and with our Department of Economic Development. Our Department of Economic Development recently introduced the Vacant to Vibrant program to help bring new businesses into our community. And I also want to echo streamlining the permitting process and making sure that businesses want to come here and be a part of our community.
I think City Council plays an important role in creating the environment in which businesses operate, but also in the ways that we think about small business in our town. Like some of my colleagues have mentioned, this is important to all of us. It's part of what makes us feel at home in Lafayette. Two of us just walked down from a local business before sitting here this evening in front of you. So certainly using the resources that City Council has, including through the tax dollars that comes through, to make sure that we are doing right by our small and local businesses and helping out where need be. Permitting and licensing responsibly and intentionally so that we can create opportunities for our businesses that are here to grow, and of course to welcome new businesses as well.
There's to be two things to focus on. The first thing is thank you to all the small businesses that have already invested in Lafayette. I brought a brand to Colorado and know the struggles. I mean, especially what everybody went through in COVID and staffing and hiring, keeping product in stock if you had to have that. So the first thing kind of is the thank you to the Chamber. I mean, y'all are the voice. The Chamber's the voice to the city, to the council. I know Brian Wrong's been a great liaison and he's terming out, but if I was to get on council, I would love to be that liaison and somebody that listens and just supports where we can as a council, or if I was elected. The other piece they've all kind of talked about, new development. There's great things coming along to encourage new businesses to come, but it's going to be super important that that permitting and development process through the new land use code changes, that it's more streamlined and it's not taking 2 to 3 years to build or redevelop a property here in Lafayette.
Okay, question number 2, and we'll start with you, Eric.
Okay.
Colorado legislature has given local communities the ability to increase the minimum wage within their communities. Please share your thoughts on increasing the minimum wage within Lafayette.
Well, I think it's really important, since we're it's a community of independent business owners, to really discuss and have like a town hall meeting or a workshop with them to really see their point of view and the struggles they're having or the struggles that they're not having, and understand what a minimum wage increase would do to their business. Now, if you look at an individual, if you're going to raise it like the proposal with Boulder County last year, they were going to raise it to $25 an hour in 2030. That's a huge increase every year. And if you look about having 10 employees at $1 increase, that's an extra $20,000 in expenses, which means like $100,000 in extra revenue that a company needs to produce just to really make ends meet. So in these economic times, I think we have to have the pulse of the independent business people and to really understand where they are.
Next candidate, please. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to say I've unabashedly been a champion for increasing the minimum wage in Lafayette, which I know some people might not want to hear, but I think we can do it gradually and we can help businesses prepare for it. Lafayette is 17% more expensive than the rest of the state. It is, if you've ever talked to any low wage people and looked at what it takes to try to live here on minimum wage, and everyone will say, well, nobody tries to live on minimum wage. Yes, some people do. And even teenagers may be working to supplement their family's income. They may be working to put away money for college because their parents don't have them. But I think there are ways to do it gradually and slowly so that we don't negatively impact local business. And I was a small business owner most of my life. I have a lot of empathy and concern about small business. It's what people love about Lafayette. So we've got to do it carefully.
I think this is really a question about the affordability of Lafayette. If you look at the statistics on where everyone lives and works in this area, you got a vast majority of people who live in Lafayette work elsewhere, and a vast majority of the people who work in Lafayette live outside. And so you have this huge outflow and inflow of traffic going in every single day. And I think we could do a better job. Now, I don't think that necessarily raising the minimum wage is the way to handle that. I would target our housing affordability focus on making sure that people who work in our town live in our town. I think everybody here has sat down with Doug, firefighter, over there. And one of the most interesting things that he said to me was that most of the firefighters can't even afford to live in Lafayette. And these are the people who are keeping us safe, who we need in the event of an emergency. And I mean, I think that we could do more to make sure, at the very least, say nothing about the broader housing crisis as a whole. The people who work here should probably be able to live here. Thank you.
I think minimum wage is a tricky subject. I mean, there's not one right answer for how to handle minimum wage. I do want to pay people a reasonable, fair wage for the work that they're doing, but I do appreciate that Lafayette can have a bigger say in the minimum wage discussion. I do think it really differs on the type of businesses, whether it's hospitality or more service or, excuse me. I think that really factors in more to how we need to treat minimum wage than just a overarching, set ourselves on a course for a certain target or goal. Yes, affordability is important, but I do think it allows us to, look at our own selves in the mirror and decide how important it is to the business owners and how it will affect them and the community and the people who live here. So I think it gives us options and not just having to follow everyone else along.
I'll answer this in three ways. First, everyone in this room would agree that the federal minimum wage is shamefully low, right? Absolutely shamefully low. But we'd also probably agree that $50 an hour would collapse many of our local businesses. So I think there's a sweet spot in there. And something that I think is lost in this fight is that so often it's a fight to get from 14 to maybe 20, as Eric said, or then you go 10 years without raising it and then another jump. What if we were to explore benchmarking it with local affordability indexes, price of groceries, gas, et cetera, so that at least we can see, hey, this is where things are, this is what it looks like. Now, it's my understanding that something like 80% of Lafayette's businesses already pay more than minimum wage, so I think that's something to encourage and continue to push for. But I think what we really need to do is explore a regional partnership with other places in Boulder County and in Weld County and nearby, so that we're not just sort of jumping around. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you to repeat it again, Frank.
No problem. I'll probably use you as the marker going forward.
I'll ask every time.
All right, the Colorado legislature has given local communities the ability to increase the minimum wage within their communities. Please share your thoughts on increasing the minimum wage within Lafayette.
I do recognize that costs are high right now, and that's kind of across the board for both, citizens, residents, businesses. I think people are struggling more than we realize, and I think it's potentially getting worse as tariffs and things continue to move costs up. I mean, I am in favor of increasing the minimum wage, though I expect most businesses in Lafayette are paying more than the minimum wage already. The thing that I haven't heard too much yet, I think Kyle mentioned it, but we do need to do it regionally if we're going to move minimum wage up. We can't just do it alone as the city of Lafayette. I don't even think we can do it, just as the communities in Boulder County. I think we need to have our neighboring jurisdictions of, Weld County, Erie, at least, Thornton, Broomfield. I mean, I think we've got to bring a lot of different groups to the table. Even with moving wages up, I do recognize that businesses are affected.
So So I might be in the minority here, but I am not in favor of increasing the minimum wage. I had the opportunity to connect with many of our local business owners, some of whom said, I'm afraid to sign my lease to stay here another year because I don't know if I can afford to pay my employees. And that just stuck with me. I don't want to lose our small businesses. I mentioned earlier, they are the heart of our community. And I don't want our business owners afraid to want to stay here. I don't want to lose them to other cities. And I don't want Lafayette to turn to a city where only Walmart and McDonald's can afford to survive. I had the opportunity to watch the Fishbowl, which was put on by Longmont, and Councilor Tapia Vega had the chance to attend. And many of our business owners are already paying over minimum wage. So if we can afford to do it now without that increase, that's the way I'd like to remain.
It is honorable that so many of our local businesses are already paying above what minimum wage is, and I think based on some proposals, what minimum wage would be. I do think, back to that first question also, that part of the role city council plays in setting policies and creating laws tells our community and tells our constituents what we believe is important. We are a reflection of the city that we live and work in. And to me, a living wage is the most crucial thing. People who are working 40 hours a week, even if it's at a job that other people might look down their noses at, should be able to put food on their table, should be able to pay rent or a mortgage, and live a reasonable quality of life here in our city.
Happy to live in a state actually where minimum wage is above federal minimum wage. Where I grew up and raised in Louisiana, it was still $7.25 an hour, which definitely nowhere even in the term what you just talked about in the living wage. And I think there's a major separation between minimum wage and living wage. As small business owners know, to get a quality employee, if they're not at a marketable wage and the skill set that they're hiring for, individuals are not going to apply for that position, and you're not going to get a quality employee, and that business will most likely probably not do well, because customer service is super important when we're talking about services or whatever they're selling or not. So when I look at minimum wage, I think it would be good to get more data from all of our small businesses and before the city council makes a decision, which they're probably working towards that. But the key component is I wouldn't go up if the small businesses are saying they're already well above that and they're taking care of their employees.
Amazing, thank you. So it's hard to go last because everyone's already said everything. But this is a key issue, and I think small businesses are the heart and soul of our city. And because of that, we can't act unilaterally as council. We have to reach out to our constituents. We have to reach out to the businesses that are in our community. And they ultimately are the ones that have to give us their concerns, give us their thoughts, and we must make our decision based on this. However, the increasing minimum wage really is one of the steps that we can take toward a comprehensive solution for affordability in this city, which is an issue for absolutely everybody. I'll go back to one of the statistics that was given here. Last year or 2 years ago, when we did the regional minimum wage study, 85% of Lafayette businesses already paid more than the minimum wage. In fact, they paid more than an 8% increase to minimum wage. That number was $15.69 at the time. So to me, we must support our workforce, we must support our workers, we must support our small businesses. To me, this is about affordability in our city. It's about making our city stronger, making our local economy stronger. But like it was said, thank you.
Okay, start with you, Anne Marie. During the past legislative session, the Colorado legislature has now allowed local municipalities to increase the tip credit. Please share your thoughts on this topic, and would you support increasing the tip credit in Lafayette?
So I think it was Kyle who said we should look at benchmarking for minimum wage. And I think the tip credit fits in that category. If it's 17% more expensive since we started minimum wage or whatever the increase has been, it's also, the tip credit has stayed the same. It's $3.05 an hour. And that was established in 2019. Restaurants are hurting, and I think we should look at the tip wage credit. If we're going to look at an increase in minimum wage, we should also look at the tip wage credit. It's only fair, but I think this should not be a political decision. It's silly that we're here talking about this as a policy matter. It should be benchmarked, like Kyle said, to some sort of data points, and we should not be having arguments about this. It seems like the bad way to make public policy. And so I support creating some benchmarks that we would tie this to.
So I actually, I don't know anything about the tip wage credit. This is news to me, and I'm not going to waste your time by BSing for a minute to fill the time. I'm going to talk a little bit more about affordability because I think that's the crux of all of these issues. We have a few factions in our city. One wants absolutely no new construction. The other wants to build. We have business owners on one side, citizens on the other. And I think that a sweet spot that I think a lot of people could actually come together and agree on is that the people who work in our city are a prime target for people who would benefit from affordable housing in our city. You can't complain about road congestion because they're commuting into town. You can't complain about like having to build like giant apartment complexes because we just need to start with the people that we have here. And these are people who are already in our community, already valued members of our business community. And that seems like the primary place that we can start with tackling affordability. Thank you.
The tip credit is honestly not something I'm super familiar with. I mean, minimum wage and the tip credit for restaurant and service industry stuff is something I don't have a very good window into. I mean, I would more address this by trying to understand who was trying to make the change in the legislature and what direction it was coming from. I don't know if this is from smaller businesses or larger corporations or, the angle in which they're trying to approach it, I think is important for us to look at and understand, where they're coming from and, the impact it will have as well. I don't know if this will substantially change what employees are taking home or not. I mean, if like minimum wage, they're already paying above that for the most part. Is this something that will actually significantly affect anyone's lives, or it's just something that we need to be aware of and keep track of? So, thank you.
I like this question because it forces us to take a step back in terms of philosophically what we're focusing on. And so the tipped workers, restaurant workers, waiters, are generally speaking, other than some amazing restaurants we have both here and elsewhere in the county, they're not making that much money, right? But we focus on minimum wage, we focus on tip credit. These are small peanuts. We're a state that has Tabor. We're a state that has a regressive 4% income tax. So some of this focus to me is a little bit missing the mark about where we could actually generate revenue. I also, like many of you, I'm probably a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that there's now tipping for things that are far outside of, tipping my barber, tipping a cab, tipping a restaurant. You tip at the bookstore. So there's an element I would want to know, and I agree with Anne Marie's point on benchmarking, since she agreed with me. But I would want to know how could we broaden the definition of tips? So I would want to have some clarity over that. But just broadly speaking, philosophically, I think we need to focus on raising revenue from the Lafayette's and other folks who can most afford it, rather than how do we nickel and dime folks who are already struggling to pay the bills.
Frank, I'll have the question again.
During the past legislative session, the Colorado legislature has now allowed local municipalities to increase the tip credit. Please share your thoughts on this topic, and would you support increasing the tip credit in Lafayette?
I mean, I think this is an interesting question, and it ties into the minimum wage discussion. I think we need to bring all the stakeholders to the table when we're thinking about this, because there's, lots of different parties that have different opposing interests, but I bet we can find common ground. I think the tipped employees who are making, have this tip credit, they're still eligible for the minimum wage, and the tip credit is supposed to make up that difference. So I like it because we can use it as another lever, right? Because we can adapt to what works for certain businesses. We can adjust that. We should be able to, use the different tools in our toolbox as we move wages up.
So I'm not sure if this is a question I can answer in 60 seconds, but I'll just give you some of my thoughts on what I am thinking here. I would love to have the opportunity to have a conversation with tipped workers in our community and see how they feel about it. I would want to have a conversation with the restaurants and bars owners and operators to see what they think about it. I have never been a person who works in food service, so I don't know what that increase would mean to an individual. So again, I'm open to learning more about it. Please feel free to email me. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Adam mentioned stakeholders, and I just couldn't help but thinking of somebody sitting in a fancy restaurant holding a steak who may or may not decide to tip well the person who is doing the work to bring them that food. I was a food service person many years ago. I was terrible at it, which is why I moved on. And so I have a ton of respect for the folks who, in many ways are the backbone of our community as our workforce. I think it's significant to remember that tipping is cultural. Yes, partly we're being asked to tip all over the place because you can just put up an iPad screen and all of that, but beside the point. The rest of the world does not really have that tipping culture that we have. They pay restaurant workers the same way they pay any other worker, so it's not like we're beholden to some force of nature that we can't get beyond. I think critically and creatively, we can certainly come up with solutions to make sure that people are getting paid well.
I am, just to kick off, I am a fan of kind of tipping and how it can be done with wages and done right. I've worked in restaurants and had a lot of customer service background. I did meet with some local restaurants here who are actually paying, so the tip credit wouldn't even affect them because they were paying minimum wage and tip pooling beyond that. So they were making well beyond minimum wage with those tips. I can even tell you, there was a local business I ran where, as you know, inflation and costs are going up constantly in this nation, and that's affecting small businesses more than anything. And look, not every customer has to tip or feel that need to go that extra step, but that can seriously help a business. And being able to, they're paying a reasonable wage, but give that employee an extra step and help them to be able to afford the cost of the inflation, because it was crazy during COVID running a business and the prices were skyrocketing every moment, and that was something that helped.
So this is an interesting topic. I remember this bill when it was passed, and I remember this bill when it was introduced by the amazing Senator Amabile. It was a contentious issue at the state level. I remember when it was originally passed, when it was originally introduced, it would increase the tip offset, or the tip credit, if you want to call it that, to almost $7 in the city of Denver, which is why it became so contentious. But the reality is, a lot of people are saying, we need to talk to the stakeholders. I have been doing that. I talk to stakeholders every day. I talk to these businesses every day. I sat on the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce for years. I talk to small businesses. I understand small businesses, especially the one in our city, especially the ones in our county, and they're struggling. That's all I really hear. The cost of labor is unbelievably expensive, but the cost of raw product is really, really expensive, especially for restaurants. So the short answer to this is absolutely. If we're looking at an increase in minimum wage, we also have to look at the tip offset to make sure that these businesses have the ability to succeed and to thrive and to pay their employees, because really, margins are razor thin. Inflation has made it more expensive, and we just need to make sure that we do what we can to help our small business.
Well, I agree with Crystal and Saul on their answers, and I really feel that, number one, I'm very involved on the business side as an independent business owner in the community, and I feel we really need to talk to all the business owners to really understand their position and how they feel about the situation. It is a very difficult thing to benchmark or to answer, but I do feel talking to the community, because it is related to our community, is the most important thing to really understand what their needs are and how we can help them.
Okay, next question, of course, starting with Michael this time. If an issue like minimum wage would significantly impact the small business community in Lafayette, how would you collect information regarding the topic, and what pieces of information would you use to make your decision?
I would always start in the bottom. I think underneath every or behind every successful small business, there's usually an army of workers. And I've been one of those workers, and I know that they're struggling as well. The economy is bad for everybody right now. And I think you start with the people who are most vulnerable, and you work up from there. And if we can build a consensus between business owners and labor in our community, that's wonderful. And I think that probably a vast majority of the issues that we would face, I think there are some common sense middle grounds between business owners and workers. But I'm on the side of the workers first and foremost. If there's a wage dispute, if there's issues with minimum wage and people aren't able to live in our community and people aren't able to take care of their families, I'm on their team first. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question for me, just to give me a chance to think a little more?
If an issue like minimum wage would significantly impact the small business community in Lafayette, how would you collect information regarding the topic, and what pieces of information would you use to make your decision?
Thank you. No, I mean, I think this really just goes to basic public outreach. I mean, business owners, I mean, you know, up and down Public Road and other kind of centers for our retail are really the best place to start. I mean, you know, as many of the local owners that you can reach is I think the best voices you hear. I mean, there are businesses that, you know, operate regionally, nationally that you are probably not going to get a great sense of, but the ones that, you know, live here and, you know, work here, I think are the best places to start. I mean, they'll be able to tell us how their finances are affected. I mean, well before the reality actually sets in. I mean, those are the best conversations with people you can have to understand them and maybe see something you didn't consider the first time around or even the second time. I'm always shocked talking to a business owner on what I learned from them and how their business operates versus someone else's. So I think those people are the best places to go. Thank you.
I'll answer this in three ways. So first, I think the current town council, city council, has done a good job of efforts out in the community. I think we could do more. So meeting people where they are. Obviously, everyone's always welcome to come to council meetings or come and dial in online. But I think there's ways that you could kind of take the council on the road. So in addition to individual outreach, I think you could also move into have some small business fora, go into folks' neighborhoods and make it a little bit more accessible, particularly for working people. Second, you know, the Chamber of Commerce here does an amazing job in Lafayette, but from talking with local small businesses and listening to them, a number of them have said the Chamber is a bit over-indexing on bigger businesses, more sustainable businesses, not necessarily the small businesses that are struggling. And then lastly, you know, this weekend I was talking to a few of the small businesses and the team that puts on the Lafayette Farmers Market, which has been a smashing success this year. I hope everyone's gone. We'll be going again in the next few weeks. And again, that comes back to how can we really revitalize and reinvest in the downtown to ensure that the small business folks have that say and not just the focus on the major, larger local businesses.
Frank, I need it again.
If an issue like minimum wage would significantly impact the small business community in Lafayette, how would you collect information regarding the topic, and what pieces of information would you use to make your decision?
So I think the council can reach out to small businesses individually. I mean, that's one way, but we can also hold like a small business forum or fishbowl kind of roundtable discussion where we're getting information from the businesses. But I do think we need to hear from the workers as well. I'd love to understand how businesses already afford to pay folks over minimum wage. I'd love to hear from businesses on which employee categories are they only paying minimum wage, and really get a sense of, you know, why certain, you know, classes of employees are paid less than minimum wage, and if it makes sense to, you know, move everyone up together, or, you know, how to stratify things a little bit better.
So I think this is an interesting question because minimum wage already has had an impact on our community. Going back to last year, we started public engagement sessions and forums and gathering data, and that data was shared with us. So I had the opportunity to read through the reports from both the perspectives of the workers and the small business owners and their feelings on minimum wage. I do think as a city, we're doing a great job of gathering that data and sharing it with the council members. And I think we just need to connect with our workers, business owners, managers, and continue to have thoughtful discussion.
So it's kind of a two-part question. How do you collect the information? And some of the folks have spoken to, I think, the ways to do that. Town halls come to mind, roundtables. I had the opportunity to go with the current council members on what I would refer to as a field trip around town last week to learn about some of the projects that this council is undergoing, but I think they call them workshops officially. And so I think that would be a really cool way to get out in the community and be gathering that information. Crystal mentioned data, and I was a high school teacher for a long time, and data-driven instruction is a big part of what we were asked to do, but I also know that data can be an incomplete piece, and you need that anecdotal evidence and people's real-life stories to go along and give you the context for that data and how to make those effective decisions.
I think pretty much everybody has covered this. I mean, you have the chamber's resources, you have small business resources. It sounds like the city's already collecting data, but there's always room for what is that data? How do you look at it? And then, I mean, making sure we're, out there supporting our small businesses and seeing the ones, if they're paying lower, how are the employees reacting? Maybe interacting with them and learning more. So it all just circles back to data, whether in person or on paper, to achieve the best answer in supporting that.
To me, this is a really, really simple question. You engage them, you talk to them. If you're an elected official in the city and you're not talking to the stakeholders and the businesses in the city, then you've already failed at the very essence of what your job is. You have to go talk to the businesses. You have to go talk to your stakeholders. And Councilor Gallegos actually brings it up. Last year, we already did this, and that's why it's such an easy question for me. We already had those forums. We already had those conversations with businesses, and this topic already came up, and we heard from them. That's how you do it. You go talk to businesses, but you also have other resources. Of course, data comes through studies, and data comes through talking to businesses and getting numbers and getting real facts and percentages about what would happen with minimum wage and around other topics as well. But we also have an amazing opportunity in the city of Lafayette where we not only have the Lafayette Chamber, we have the Latino Chamber. We have two chambers that serve our community, serve our businesses, and we must use them. We must use them as a resource. But again, going back to the beginning, this is the easiest question in the world. You go talk to the people served.
A lot of the question has been answered by the other candidates, but I do feel that a great resource to really work with is the chamber. The chamber has a pulse, and I do agree with the Latino Chamber because they're also involved in our community, and also talking to other chambers in neighboring communities as Erie, Broomfield, because that'll give us a better idea on what other communities are looking at and also give us more data for us to research it. I do feel going out in the community, which I do already, and I'm very involved with the chamber. I already have a very good pulse of what businesses are looking for, and I'm very approachable to listen to anyone that wants to speak their mind.
Well, a couple things that have been mentioned are data and outreach. One of the problems on this issue and in other similar issues is that low-wage people or otherwise marginalized people, perhaps immigrants or newcomers to our community, are at a disadvantage. They often work full-time, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs. They can't come to meetings. And I would say the process that both Lafayette and Longmont recently did had a disadvantage in that low-wage workers didn't show up. And if we want low-wage workers to be part of this conversation, we're going to have to do extraordinary outreach, which means we're going to have childcare, maybe meals. We're going to have interpreters because they were not as well represented as they should have been. We did have data. We had a 600-page report on minimum wage that the consortium of cities promoted. We have good data, and we had a reasonable, good process.
Okay, it's your turn to start out, Luke. There has been feedback from entrepreneurs, contractors, and builders that they will not bring their business to or work in Lafayette due to the current licensing and permitting processes. What are your ideas to help mitigate these issues, attracting new businesses to Lafayette?
So I guess 2 parts. I mean, having a contractor, whether it's a tenant-driven or a landlord-driven project, issues that I hear is between different municipalities is there are different rules, there are different regulations, there are different licenses, and usually it's the license fee that they have to pay to do business in every community is just another cost of doing business, which then will ultimately get passed down to whoever's going to be paying that bill. So as much as regionally, because most of these people are working within this region, can work in the area without having to go through other little specialty things, or can be working on the same code edition or the same type of things they're going to come across in other jobs. It allows them to bid things and keep costs down, which again get passed through to everyone else. Simplicity and streamlining is great. Being able to come in, approach people at the help desk or ask questions, understanding specific codes and regulations is important and just helps deal with issues that will become problems without being big problems.
Thank you for this question. So an interesting case study is the Daily Grains Bakery. that's trying to open and expand on public roads. So I imagine many of us here have followed the Instagram story and followed their kind of trials and tribulations as they've been navigating the challenges that Frank highlighted. You know, permitting fees, regulations, this is all critical to ensure buildings are safe, the food is quality, et cetera, but it shouldn't take weeks and months and years to get these things over the hump. And so I think we could explore when a business is encountering that level of difficulty, do they need a shepherd? To Anne Marie's point, you know, what if an immigrant is trying to open a new restaurant? If it's difficult for the Daily Grains folks, it's going to be very difficult for migrant workers and other folks who are trying to get things going. And it, you know, to me, this brings me back to how we can further incentivize and support businesses downtown, because we don't want anybody to feel like they're not welcome here or not able to do business. So do we need to assign a personnel or a team to help them get through that log jam to ensure that processes are swift and streamlined?
Frank, hit me again.
There has been feedback from entrepreneurs, contractors, and builders that they will not bring their business to or work in Lafayette due to the current licensing permitting processes. What are your ideas to help mitigate these issues, attracting new businesses to Lafayette?
I think that's an unfortunate statement, and I hope they'll change their minds because Lafayette's a great community, and I think they should want to do business here. We can solve this problem. This is not an untenable problem. You know, earlier I talked about a roadmap. That's something that the city could put together to make very clear, here is the process that you need to go through. The city needs to improve its website. I know they just went through this not too long ago. It's still not great. So I really want to see the website improve to make clear, you know, which codes, which licenses, which permits are required. We also have had a staffing turnover problem in the planning department, and we need to, you know, figure out how we can, you know, I think the shepherding through by a staff member is a good idea to make sure that, you know, they can really have continuity of service from the city.
So as a current council member, I have heard this conversation in this room before. We've had several people come in front of council and mention that it's taking a long time to make this happen. And in fact, there was one specific business announced when I first started on council in 2023 that's still not here in 2025. So I really hope that there is something we can do to help streamline that process and make it smoother for individuals. I don't know if we need to bring on additional staff. I would like to reach out to planning and see if they need additional support, and this is something that we need to consider, but I hope to make it a better process in the future.
I likewise wonder if increase in personnel would help smooth some of the time lag issues. If this is the type of problem that some additional resources can help smooth over. I think there are differences to consider between the costs associated with licensing and permitting, and then the processing and bureaucratic elements of the same. And it's interesting to think about contractors and builders who might not want to bring their business and work into our city here, because it feels like we have plenty of people who are capable of doing work here and profiting. And so presumably those folks are doing well for themselves by bringing their business here. And so I wonder what the problems are with some of those folks that might not feel they're able to do so.
This is a tough one for 60 seconds. I've been digging deep into this one because a lot of the communities talked about, we have so many vacant spaces, and it's great to see finally some movement in South Public area and some new developments coming. But the tough part is every business owner talks about, there's actually great grants out there. There's new incentives coming with the DDA or in the economic development. Bridget Keating's doing a great job. We're marketing and encouraging, but in the background, there's the scary thing of development is horrendous. Small businesses don't have a ton of money like big developers. So process shouldn't be smooth and simple for big developers, but for small businesses, it needs to be much more streamlined. I appreciate the people that have been volunteering on the land use code updates. I got to attend that meeting. I've been to planning commission. Thank you for everybody you'll do to volunteer on that. But there's tons of opportunities to streamline and improve the process so small businesses can get open much quicker than 2 to 3 years is what it's taking right now for development.
First and foremost, this is heartbreaking to hear. But as Councilor Gallego said, this is not something that I heard today for the first time. Being a sitting city council member, this is something that I've heard many times. I've heard the term Lafayette is closed for business many more times than I would ever want to hear in my entire life. But because of this is one of the tenets of my campaign. Supporting small businesses means supporting businesses that want to come and make Lafayette their home. And that means streamlining the permitting process, the regulation process, cutting red tape, and just making it overall easier for businesses to come into our city and make our city their home. But also, like Councilor Gallegos referred to earlier, this is something that we've already been working on. The Vacant to Vibrant program is something that passed unanimously through our council, and I was very proud of the work that we're doing that would allow up to 50% of certain taxes, up to $10,000, be reimbursed to the business or be given back to the businesses, or just be by the businesses in order to not just move into the city, but to increase in size and to grow within our city. So again, there's upfront costs, there's opportunity costs, but I want this to work.
I've heard for years, being in the town, that permitting and licensing is a nightmare, and it has taken away some businesses that wanted to come in here. My experience as a general contractor for the state of Florida for 20 years, if I'm elected, I will definitely get on top of this, streamline the process, get involved personally because I understand what construction is all about, and make a difference, and hopefully do a step-by-step process that will invite more local businesses to come and make it a very easy process or an easier process to open a business here in this community. There are programs, grant programs that the city has presently, but in the background, it's just super difficult with the permitting process. So I would definitely streamline that and spearhead it if I'm elected.
So in the first question, you talked about creating the environment for businesses to thrive. And this is just the epitome of that, which is if our services and our approvals and our permitting take so long that businesses are out money and resources, then we should be improving that. When I looked at the website and tried to figure out how long does it take for certain permitting and licensing, I found I couldn't get good information on the website. So a business doesn't really know what to expect. And we also don't know how well we're doing compared to other communities of a similar size. Is our process longer, shorter? So I think there's a lot of improvement that could be done here. And maybe we just play catch up where we hire some consultants to work with us to get ourselves caught up. And then we hold ourselves to high standards in terms of getting things turned around in a timely fashion. But this is the key. And it is why people want to be in Lafayette, and we need to support our small business.
I think obviously we need to streamline our code, our approval process, the permits necessary. But we also need to understand that the code and the permitting process is there for a reason, and it's there to protect our community. And if it's not so doing that, then absolutely we need to repeal it. We need to change it. We need to come up with new code, new permitting process that represents our values. But if a company doesn't want to come into Lafayette because of code that reflects our values as a community, I say don't come. And I'm not afraid to say that. I think that a lot of these, especially larger businesses that muscle their way in, they soak up all the oxygen in the room simply because they have more money, more lawyers, a bigger team of people that they can send to try to push their way around. And for that, I think we need to stand up for our values as a community. But obviously, like I'm a programmer, I work with performance code all the time. Make it efficient. That's thank you.
So the next two questions will be asked by Rosabelle Rice on behalf of the Dino Chamber.
And we'll be starting now. Okay, we're starting with Kyle. And the question is, how do you envision fostering an inclusive local economy that ensures immigrant, minority-owned, and family-run businesses have access to the same opportunities and resources as larger companies?
I love this question because I think it really builds nicely on the previous one. And the slowness in permitting and fees and licenses that are affecting other businesses also affect immigrant businesses, small businesses from folks who are new to our state, maybe English as a second language. And so when we're not providing that shepherd or that support infrastructure, well, then there's tax revenue not being collected. There's folks not receiving wages, minimum wage or higher. I think in this time with ICE predation and with a lot of news and fear in a lot of communities, we look and see what happens in Aurora, Colorado. I think it's really important for City Council to stand up very clearly and defend our immigrant neighbors, our core members of our community, because it's difficult to do business and to engage in commerce if you're afraid that your grandmother or your children will be snatched. So I think, with our partnership with local law enforcement, with the county, et cetera, doing everything we can to really emphasize that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it one more time? I know I just heard it, but it still helps me.
How do you envision fostering an inclusive local economy that ensures immigrant, minority-owned, and family-run businesses have access to the same opportunities and resources as larger companies?
So I think this can come into staffing in the city, making sure that our staff are set up and know that, we want to help those folks and realize they may have a more difficult time. It might mean that we need to have bilingual staff that we don't have right now, so maybe we need to increase staffing. Having staff that reach out to our different communities more proactively. Maybe we can have a program that is set up to as just an informal question and answer type event for those parts of the community that want to start businesses.
So I do think we are already doing a great job providing access to different members of our community. As a city, we do have a very diverse staff, many who speak so many different languages. We have things published in multi-languages as well. I love the support of the Latino Chamber, and again, that support issued to people in multi-languages so that it's accessible to them. If you take a look at our council, I think we have one of the most diverse councils in Boulder County, maybe even the state. So it is wonderful to see. Even though I'm not bilingual, I do try my best to publish things in both English and Spanish to the best of my ability. And I also speak Italian, Latin, and sign.
I know the council and or the city already has something on the books that says that they will not support the crass policies of some of the federal immigration enforcement, which I definitely appreciate and would like to take a step further. Something we think about a lot in education, that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that when you don't feel safe, you can't really be your best self or be doing other things. More specifically, subsidies and grants for immigrant, minority, and family-owned businesses, utilizing our community members who already represent those aspects, and celebrating the diversity that we have in Lafayette is one of the things that makes us special and stand out in Boulder County. So relying on some of our community members to create that inclusive environment.
The diversity is just a key component in to begin with in Lafayette. When you look at the history, the Latino coal mining here, Mexican coal mining in Lafayette, it's just super crucial to making sure everybody is included in the opportunity to grow in small business. I mean, that's what America was built on. I think partnering, circling with the city and the chambers, working together, the resource fairs of what's available. I also attended myself a Lafayette Chamber event where they were talking about opportunities that Boulder County and PACE and the state and all that have to help in supporting grants towards replacing old equipment and getting new equipment, but it's making sure that information is available. And the Latino Chamber is a great opportunity where everybody's partnering together to bring those resources and make sure everybody has the knowledge and availability of that. And the staff here in general, I mean, accessibility to staff should be available for everyone of all diversity and inclusion.
So first and foremost, thank you for being here and representing the Latino Chamber. That's an organization that is near and dear to my heart. So I love that we are able to have both chambers represented here. And this is also a question that kind of hits hard for me because I am a minority, I am Latino, and I was a small business owner in this state. So I know exactly what these businesses go through. And to kind of quote my friend Rob Glenn over at the end there, this is just what the American dream really is. They want to be an entrepreneur, they want to start a small business, and they want it to grow. But unfortunately, their path is just naturally going to be harder than other people's. So what we do for us, it's really about equitable access to all resources. And that means, making sure that we do a good job of providing these resources, but also partnering with organizations such as the Small Business Development Center, the Latino Chamber of Commerce. I was very proud that this past year we passed a contract and we all voted in favor of a contract with the Latino Chamber of Commerce. So partnering with organizations like that, continuing our work on the IDEA project, and really just, I really want to continue our work and what we've done here.
First of all, the Latino Chamber does an excellent job. Presently, they're helping people at Sister Carmen's with educational workshops and business workshops to help them if they want to open up a new business, a step-by-step process. I think it's great. And I think the city is doing a pretty good job, but I think they can do a better job. One thing that we're lacking right here with the city is we don't have a grant writer. There's a lot of money out there federally and statewide that we're not addressing and could have access to that we don't, because we don't have a grant writer and we probably funnel a job responsibility to somebody, and we should have a full-time employee looking for grants, looking for access to money, and find more money for our community.
So immigrants have been the key to the success of the United States of America for many years. We should be doing everything we can to support immigrants, small business, minority-owned business, and outreach is the key, because they don't have extra staff to be attending meetings and reading all the websites and looking for grants out in the state government. They rely on us, and so we need to be doing extensive outreach. I talked to another Chamber of Commerce that had a small business roundtable meeting every quarter where they brought people together to identify problems before they became big. That's another idea we could work with the chamber on. Mentoring, so that a new business has a mentor business where they can reach out their hand and say, I applied for this city grant and I got it, and here's what I did to get it. So there are all kinds of ideas out there, and I think in partnership with both the Lafayette Chamber and the Latino Chamber, we can work on those.
I mean, excellent answer. That's everything that I wanted to say as well. I think it starts with listening to the little guy. And if you're talking about like really, I mean, we kind of mess up the definition of small local business to include a lot of people who I don't necessarily think are a little bit bigger than small local business. But a small local business, immigrant-owned, Latino-owned, the question isn't like, how do they have access to the same resources that everybody has? How do they go through the same pipeline? How can we make the pipeline easier for them? Like Kingsington, Thibault Properties, and Krishna Groceries should not be going through the same process. Like, one of them is an actual authentic, like, local small business that we need to support and want to grow, and the other two are giant behemoths that maybe don't have our best interests at heart. So make sure that we have the resources in city council and in the city government to genuinely be supporting people who are coming from a poorer background than most business owners might come from, and want to start a business in our community. Thank you.
I mean, I wish I knew the percentage of small businesses that fall into this category. I mean, I think it's probably higher than most of us know and think about. But I do think it's really engagement and meeting them where they're at. Again, it's trying to, yes, they have the same pipeline, the same thing they have to follow, but I do worry that these groups are not as willing to step out of the shadow into the light to get the help or resources that we put out there. So it really is, leaning into the small town that we are to meet them and know them and see them. I mean, you probably bump into a lot of these people more than you would think, and just giving them more opportunity to find these things that are available and help them along the way. I really think we have to lean into that if we want to make it more successful for these type of businesses.
Okay, we're going with Adam.
Do I need this twice or once?
We'll see.
That's pretty funny.
How will you balance Lafayette's sustainability and climate goals with the needs of small businesses? And what role do you see businesses playing in advancing those goals?
Yeah, this is a great question. I thought about sustainability for a long time. I don't see that these things are at odds. I think our small businesses are working on this. You know, we have county partners that can help our businesses, and they're doing that. And we're reaching out to those small businesses where we can. I think the city wants to work with everyone to advance our sustainability goals, whether they're small businesses or large businesses. I think the small business, maybe there's more opportunities because it's less bureaucracy in a small business to get their support to do things like energy upgrades, because you don't have to work through the hierarchy of a large business.
Could you repeat the question for me?
Oh, wow. Okay. How will you balance Lafayette's sustainability and climate goals with the needs of small businesses? And what role do you see businesses playing in advancing those goals?
All right. So we have SRAB, who advises council on sustainability and resiliency. And we also have our climate action plan. I think both do a fantastic job advising the city on our goals. To advise our small businesses, I think something we could consider financial support towards upgrades, maybe installation of heat pumps or solar, because that will bring down their costs in the long term. Let's see. And that is.
Like Adam said, I don't think these things are fundamentally opposed. In fact, I would go so far as to say the opposite. I think the more that we are fostering small businesses and embracing that, the better off we are going to be environmentally and with sustainability. I think about this notion of how we are individually supposed to recycle in our homes, and it's of course good to do that and save water in our homes, but the impact that us each has as an individual pales in comparison to what these large companies, corporations, your Krogers can impact. And so of course we want to make sure that we're being responsible and that we're helping our small businesses to be environmentally as well as economically responsible. But I would really put the onus on these large out-of-state corporations and developers that are coming in and causing the problems.
As I mentioned in one of the last questions, it was talked about the PACE program. That was something that was brought to play. The whole purpose of that was there was a pretty decent sized rebate for businesses like refrigeration or anything that was old and not energy efficient, to make sure those were aware of those resources, lighting, refrigeration, etc. So that's a great part, is just making sure education of what's available and what's already out there. But besides that, in the renewing and preserving part of development in Lafayette, the fact that we have vacant spaces, that's more important than the new development, because we're not using raw resources as much for those vacant spaces in the redevelopment. And then the other thing is just a larger thing is how we're conserving on water. Recycling is amazing, where actually you can go to a recycling facility here in Boulder County and see that they aren't just throwing it in a trash dump, that it is being taken care of, and encouraging more recycling and composting.
Thank you for the question. So we talk about sustainability, we talk about resilience, we talk about small business. To me, that's one and the same. We're talking about the future of our city and the future of our state. The reality is, if we want to build a resilient Lafayette, we have to look at our economic development sector, we have to look at our businesses, and we have to look at what the city is doing. I'm proud that in my time on city council, we passed a climate action plan, which looked at economic development, what that'll look like for the next 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, 50 years. So I'm already proud of the work we're doing, but as many have mentioned, there's resources available. through partners like the SBDC, through PACE at the county, and through the Colorado Energy Office. There's resources out there, and it's our job to get those resources to our small businesses. So I'm proud of the work we've done, and I think the work just really continues. And I'm really looking forward to making Lafayette a resilient city. And again, that means working with our small businesses, it means working with our staff, it means working with our county, and making sure that we build a strong Lafayette for tomorrow.
Okay. Saul already said, the city is working on the Climate Change Action Plan, which they developed in August of 2024. And it covers 7 different areas to make it more sustainable and create cleaner energy and cleaner ways of moving into the future. One way would be to offer grant programs in transportation to switch vehicles from gas to electric. Also talk to restaurants about recycling some of their water. They have systems now that can use a cleaner water process, and also in our grow facilities, recycle water there, which they use a lot of water in cultivation, and also our farms. So there are a lot of areas that we can do better on, but I think we're in the right direction. The city, with the action plan, is doing the right thing and working together.
I want to say I really appreciate the work of the Sustainability Advisory Committee and the Climate Action Plan. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. I think our code and how building happens is one of the ways we can be more sustainable. Like when a new business goes in, are they putting in a bluegrass lawn that requires a lot of water, or are we helping to incentivize them not to do that? I looked at the economic development grants that have been given out in the last couple of years, and many of them were for improvements to energy, like HVAC systems, and so we're doing a lot. We need to keep up with what we're doing, and one of the problems is federal and state money is going to be drying up. And that's going to be a challenge for all of us in the future, and what Lafayette is going to be willing to do on its own without those monies, or whether we can put a surcharge on certain things to try to fund that. I think the vacant and vibrant,
So, if I can restate the question, how do we balance the short-term profitability needs of small business in Lafayette with an existential crisis that is facing all of humanity and every form of life on planet Earth right now? We don't. We need to stop this idea that there's not a fundamental conflict between our business needs and the needs of our economy and the environment that we depend on for our very lives. You got to start with where you are, not with where you wish you were. Like, I wish we were in a situation where the environment was great and where everything was going good, and we could focus on the profitability of small businesses. But we're not there. Like, we are in the fight for our lives, and it doesn't seem that way because we're pushing all of this damage that we're doing off on our children's generation and our grandchildren's, and we need to stop, whatever that takes. Thank you.
I think in the lens of small business, I mean, from what I deal with, and I deal with a lot of retail tenants in the city of Boulder, which has their own way of doing this, is upfront costs. I mean, most of these things require massive investments, and some have a quicker repayment than others. But it's being kind of understanding and insightful of the right time to implement some of these things, whether it's a new build out or new construction, or if you really need to incentivize these things when the right window of time is, because businesses see money going out the door to solve problems that are a long time in the making and will have a long runway ahead of them. So trying to pick where we get the most bang for the buck and they get the most bang for their buck in their investment in their business cycle is, I think, a key thing that needs to be focused on more.
It's a lot easier going last than first, so well done, Adam. Three things on this. It's been coming up on 4 years since the Marshall Fire, and we talk about sustainability and small business success. That doesn't matter if your town burns down. And so, I think Mike is a little dramatic, but also couldn't be more right, and his beautiful family is here. Look, the climate is changing. Federal and state grants are vanishing, as Anne Marie noted. This is a critical issue for us. Should the onus on fixing that be to a mom and pop shop? Of course not. But how do we think about Lafayette's brand as a leader? We're a small town, but how do we think about our brand as a leader in this space? As that money dries up, what do we innovate on? What do we lean into? What defensible space do we resource? And while I have the con, we have to fully resource our fire department because another Marshall fire, we're due, right? The climate's changing. There was a big fire up in Nederland last night. Our resources are stretched thin there. So sustainability, that's very important, but also that security element. What's the threat level for another repeat of a fire?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, up to question number 8, Crystal. What ideas do you have to address the home affordability issue in Lafayette?
So I had the opportunity to attend the ribbon cutting of Willoughby Corner, and even though my role was small, it was incredible to see. And Willoughby is just the beginning of affordable housing for Lafayette. It's breaking barriers. We had a record number of applicants who were interested, and we are starting in the process of starting a second phase and homes available for purchase. That's only one thing we can do to help with affordable housing right now, but I think Willoughby's success was based on teamwork. We didn't do it alone. We worked in conjunction with Boulder County and the Boulder County Housing Authority. And I think in the future, we should look to our neighboring communities and see if we can work in conjunction with them. Who has available property? Where can we get this process started? It isn't something we can do alone.
Something that is important is when we are talking about, in particular, new developments or redevelopment that's going to change the scope of the existing infrastructure, making sure that we are holding accountable the planning and the development, increasing the percentage required of multifamily and affordable housing in those developments, not letting some of these big corporate developers get away with shrinking those numbers in favor of their own profits. And I think we are doing things to move in the right direction. But the thing that is most important to me there is not allowing these big companies to value profit over the affordability and ability of people to live comfortably in Lafayette.
Affordable housing, passionate topic for me. I'm actually a residential realtor. I decided to change careers in 2024 to that. One of the biggest things I hear as we grow into this economy is, especially for new home buyers, that they are fearful that they will never be able to own a home. Willoughby Corner was great in that it added more units of availability as we're growing in population. But when we get into affordability, it's a larger issue when you talk about the median income that decides what's affordable for county and state and et cetera, that the city has to follow, because Boulder County Housing Authority is actually who sets the standards. So there was a small amount of units that maybe really hit home, but with construction costs and so on, I think I would encourage anybody on Karen's Substack to read Vicky's writing on it and the affordability on that, because it really hits home. And it's not just a simple problem of adding units. It's way deeper than that.
This is a issue of affordability. It's not just housing to me. We need comprehensive solutions to affordability in our city. Rob says there's a generation of people who will never own a home. You don't have to go very far to find those. I probably am one of them. I'm one of the few renters on city council right now, and I can't afford a home in our city. It's just far too expensive to live here. With that being said, I think we're already getting to where we need to be to really start making dramatic change in this state. I think the city of Lafayette has been a leader in this sector specifically. We talk about Willoughby Corner, and yes, it's a fantastic project, but I'll tell you one statistic. When Willoughby Corner is all said and done, it's going to have 400 units. In the first 8 hours of Willoughby Corner's website going live, they had 900 applications. So we still have need. It's not going to be enough. So continuing the work we're doing in ADUs, continuing the work we're doing in our mobile home communities, continuing the work we're doing and putting our money where our mouth is in developments like Willoughby Corner is the way forward. And really just continuing the work we've done.
I think the project in Lafayette, Willoughby Corner, has been awesome, bringing in 400 families, making it affordable for them. I do feel that we have to look at it, we have to look at the infrastructure, the traffic congestion that it's going to create, and study it before we can actually do any more projects. I do feel that once we study it, we should talk to neighboring communities that have property available and work with them and show them what a success it is. Because I think it's in the right direction. And it is expensive to live in Lafayette, so I think it is a good step forward.
I have a 25-year background in working on affordable housing. And the things, I have a long list. We need home ownership opportunities for our essential workers like our firefighters and our police department. We can do that with partnerships with groups like Habitat for Humanity and other home ownership groups. We need an inclusionary housing ordinance. Every community around us, Boulder, Louisville, Longmont, Superior, all have an inclusionary housing ordinance that allows them to get between $9 and $13 a square foot or affordable housing, and we get $1 a square foot. So we need to reform that. We need to look at accessory dwelling units and how to incentivize them to be affordable. Lots of models around the country. We need to look at vacation rentals and whether or not we have enough or too many, and whether or not they're pushing out homeowners because of the high costs. We need to explore land trusts and mobile home co-ops like La Luna.
I rented for the first 5 years. I lived in Lafayette. I lived in 5 different places, had to move every single year. It was a nightmare. I got into a place on Bedivere Circle with a fantastic out-of-state landlord who did not want to fix a darn thing about the place. The microwave was literally falling off of the cabinets. I tried calling the city of Lafayette. There was nothing. The only like housing assistance that you had for code inspections or code violations was to assist landlords in certifying their properties. There was nothing for tenants to make sure that the tenants had actual livable spaces. The other thing that I don't think that we want to talk about is that a lot of the renters, none of my landlords were giant out-of-state conglomerates. They were normal people. And there were normal people who looked at the market and said, this is a good passive income, and I'm just going to ratchet up the price as much as the market will bear. And as much as the market will bear is not necessarily the most humane way to deal with your resources. Thank you.
And home affordability is tricky. I mean, we live in an amazing place, so that means people want to be here with us too. We have huge amounts of open space, and we have a state highway, and I mean, we have lots of things that kind of divide up our community. My personal thing is I would like more variety. I mean, I do think ADUs are a great resource. I do think having the mobile homes, I would love to see more apartments and condos, and I'm not personally afraid of density in the right places. It gives choices to people. It gives you places to move up from. I mean, I'm fortunate we rented for a year here, and then we were able to buy where we're at. I would have a hard time doing that again. I would be moving further east. I would like to have more options and not just a bunch of single-family homes. So I appreciate when that is not the only choice and we kind of make other options be included in that setup. So
I think this forces us to ask, again, who do we want to be? What kind of a community do we want to be? Do we want to sort of shut the door? We've got ours, our equity jumped by several 100,000 and therefore no new residents. I rented for nearly 20 years until we bought in Lafayette a few years ago. And seeing the ladder being pulled up behind folks in other parts of Boulder County, particularly our neighbors to the west, is really disheartening, right? I imagine many folks are familiar with the Bedrooms Are for People movement and their failure to get some of the policy change initially in Boulder. The state has overruled our home rule, and I know that we're suing them right now to sort that out. I think Lafayette's been a leader in trying to manage and have responsible growth. I'm a big believer that affordable housing is when you have more units of more variety. So when I think about how we're grappling with the question of open space, the question of development, I think we need to really emphasize managed and responsible, but not just kind of be no. Like, where can we say yes? Where can we be creative? Whether it's ADUs, whether it's converting, whether it's offering more folks options for where they are.
This was a simple question, but I'm still going to ask you to repeat it, please.
What ideas do you have to address the home affordability issue in Lafayette?
So there's a few things that we can do with our zoning code, actually. One thing that's important is to revise our zoning code to protect the affordable housing, our mobile homes that already exist, prevent those from being redeveloped and replaced with higher priced units. Anne Marie mentioned inclusionary zoning, and that's a no-brainer. We should have that. We should be requiring affordable units for any new developments. In our zoning code, we can also think about incentives that we offer to builders for providing additional affordable units, and we can be creative with what that is. But I think we need to be careful, because sometimes the incentives don't actually achieve affordability. So for example, Willoughby Corner, 60% AMI is the same as market rates. So even our affordable housing is not affordable, so we need to be really careful there. And I think for ADUs, we could have some pre-approved plans.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we come to our wondrous lightning round, where the answer is basically just going to be yes or no, no explanation. And we will start with Josh. Josh, are you using Lafayette businesses to provide your campaign materials?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
I don't have any campaign materials.
Yes or no?
No.
Signs, yes. Website, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, starting with you, Rob. So this one is, your answer is either going to be support or opposition. Are you in support or opposition of the ballot measure to issue bonds for improvements at City Service Center, the Recreation Center, and building a new city hall?
Support.
Support.
Against.
Support.
Against.
Support.
Against.
Support.
Support.
Against.
Okay. And actually, we got one more, so why not start again with you again, Saul? Okay, so this is strictly yes or no. Do you see Lafayette sales tax as being a problem for businesses in Lafayette?
Yes.
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 No.
Nope.
No?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all very much for coming up here
Grand
tonight.
consensus there on the
talking to us.
last two.
Really appreciate your time. And also thank you to the audience for coming out and listening to the questions, and hope they help with your decisions when you're voting, and also to the viewers at home. Thank you.
viewers-